Welcome back, everyone. The national spotlight is on Yuma as border activity in our region hits unprecedented levels. But what does this crisis look like from Mexico? Our own Adam Klepp takes us to the other side of the wall in this special report.
Yuma and the border wall becoming a popular destination for prominent government figures over the past several months. The Secretary of Homeland Security, Arizona's governor, and U.S. senators all recently visiting Yuma amid record levels of crossings. In fiscal year 21, U.S. Border Patrol says they've had 114,000 encounters in the Yuma sector alone, not at official ports of entry. Migrants say they're simply looking for a better life.
For my family that's in Venezuela, for the political situation that's going on, and for everyone living in the country, the poverty, the misery, all of that.
But politicians on both sides of the aisle say the situation is out of control.
Border security and recent border crossers fit into that border security category, so they are an enforcement priority of ours.
Public safety, as you can see right here in real time, this is a humanitarian crisis.
So after months of viewing this crisis from here in the United States, I wondered what's on the other side of this wall. So I went to Mexico to find out. Just north of the Mexican border town of Los Algodones is the Morelos Dam. From the dam, you can see the open gaps in the Yuma sector border fence. The Department of Homeland Security says plans are in place to close them in 2022, but for now, the gaps remain open. From atop the dam, my spot what looks like a family unit with young children. They're walking through the marsh, where they quickly come into contact with a member of Border Patrol and are apprehended. Further south, down Highway 2, I come just west of County 14th Street and the Cocopah Reservation. Here I spot another small group of migrants making their way to the United States through a date farm and past a 7-mile section of the border where there is no wall. This aerial shot shows the pathway thousands of migrants take across the border by foot, then north to where the wall ends, where they await apprehension. My last stop is at the corner of the Arizona border, just west of San Luis, Mexico. Here, the border wall is not built along the actual border of the United States and Mexico, but a few hundred feet inside of it. While the wall makes things difficult for those who don't want to be caught by Border Patrol, non-citizens seeking to be apprehended simply walk up to it and wait for authorities. Here, a group of around 50, mostly single adult men, are lined up by one agent, beginning their asylum-seeking process. From 2020 to 2021, the Yuma sector saw the biggest percentage increase in encounters with single adult men of any other sector along the U.S.-Mexico border. From the Morelos Dam gaps to the wall-less part of the reservation and the border wall built inside the U.S. boundary, this 20-mile section of the U.S.-Mexico border in the Yuma sector provides at least 3 unique scenarios for law enforcement and the U.S. government as they try and get the border crisis under control. Adam Klepp, News 11.
New tonight, Arizona's top law enforcement officer gives the governor the green light to, quote, engage in a war at the border. Attorney General Mark Brnovich's legal opinion contends that Arizona has a right to respond to what he labels an invasion. Team 12's Bram Resnick got an expert's opinion on the legality of Arizona launching a border war and asked Governor Ducey whether he'd do it.
Wait, what's going on our southern border? All these people from other countries coming in. That's an invasion.
A Fox News host taking his cue from Republican Attorney General Mark Brnovich's new legal opinion.
Make no mistake about it. The cartels are at war with us.
Also part of the invasion force, according to Brnovich, the record high number of undocumented immigrants and asylum seekers crossing the border. The AG's new legal opinion concludes, states retain the sovereign power to engage in war when actually invaded. The state, through its governor as commander-in-chief, can exercise its own power of self-defense.
Is using the Guard to repel this so-called invasion force. Is that off the table?
I think you ought to read the opinion in
I did.
full. Okay.
I read
It doesn't even mention the National Guard.
But the Arizona National Guard is the armed force that Republican Governor Doug Ducey commands. He's deployed Guard members to support law enforcement in border counties. And the governor has seen firsthand what Brnovich is talking about. A dozen asylum seekers walked through a gap in the border fence during a Ducey news conference.
But we'll continue to do everything we can on the state's behalf.
There's good reason the governor's not marching into a border battle armed only with Brnovich's opinion. Here's immigration policy expert David Beer.
This is going to be laughed out of any courts if they actually try to use the power.
Beer says courts have already ruled that states can't do what Brnovich claims the U.S. Constitution allows Arizona to do.
This morning, the woman accused of luring a Houston man to his death at the hands of vicious gang members is still on the run. Investigators say Carla Morales cut off her ankle monitor just days before she was set to go back on trial back in October. Michelle Choi has more from outside Houston Crime Stoppers in Midtown. Michelle, good morning.
Steph, good morning. Yeah, 20-year-old Carla Morales has been on the run for months since skipping bail. In fact, the DA's office says she's been gone since October of last year, but we're just now learning about it. Houston Crime Stoppers is now offering a $5,000 reward for information leading to her capture. Take a good look at your screens. This is wanted murder suspect Carla Morales. Back in 2018, when she was just 17 years old, prosecutors say she lured 24-year-old Jose Villanueva to a wooded area in Spring to celebrate his birthday. Instead, he was met by 5 MS-13 gang members who murdered him with machetes and shot him repeatedly. Those gang members have already been convicted and sentenced to prison. Morales was the last one set to face trial. At the time, she was awaiting trial on a $60,000 bond, but just days before she would have faced a jury, authorities say she cut off her ankle monitor and disappeared. Andy Kahn with Crime Stopper says it's frustrating. We're just now learning that Morales skipped bond.
And this was just an insidious, sadistic case. There should be an alert put out to law enforcement, the public, and media to be on the lookout. But we treat these cases like night and day, and perhaps it's time to change our mindset.
We're told Morales was born in California and has family in Central America, but authorities believe she may still be here in the Houston area. Dave.
Michelle Choi live in Midtown this morning. Michelle, thanks.
Jurors reached a verdict today in the trial of one of the alleged MS-13 gang members charged in the 2017 murder of Lynchburg teen Raymond Wood.
10 News reporter Tim Harfman was in the courtroom as they read the verdict.
After 5 days of hearing from nearly 20 witnesses and viewing more than 100 pieces of evidence, the jury found Josue Correas Ventura guilty of both aggravated murder and abduction for financial benefit. During closing arguments, the prosecution claimed 17-year-old Raymond Wood was murdered for being, quote, a barrier to the goal, as MS-13 tried to make Lynchburg their territory to sell marijuana and cocaine. And the defendant asked for other alleged gang members to help him kill Wood as he supplied the knife and gloves used. The defense said the defendant is guilty of murder and abduction, but asked the jury to pay attention to the details of the charges, claiming no one was extorted, so it should be first degree instead of aggravated murder. Bedford Commonwealth's attorney Wes Nance says while both charges carry the possibility of life in prison, they want justice for Raymond.
It was very important to the Commonwealth and to Raymond's family to charge this to the fullest extent of the law. And to have that response from the jurors, to have that verdict from the jurors, puts us in a very good place to make sure that Correas Ventura never threatens another individual for the rest of his natural life.
Correas Ventura has another charge pending, which Nance says may or may not go to trial. His sentence will be set for a later date. In Bedford, Tim Harfman, 10 News, working for you.
Something you can expect to hear more of throughout 2022 as Republicans seek to take back Congress in the midterm election. It's the situation going on at the border.
Last year, Border Patrol saw nearly 2 million migrants trying to cross into the U.S. illegally. So how many have been sent back? How many remain? And who's in charge of the ones who do stay? Joe St. George reports.
As the country debates immigration, it's important to remember that people die trying to come here. This memorial is on the side of the road in Holtville, California, about 10 miles from from the Mexican border. 13 migrants who were being smuggled in a car died in a crash here last year. Crosses, names, now reminders of the dangerous journey. Another reminder is less than a mile from the site, a John and Jane Doe cemetery for the remains of unidentified migrants whose bodies were found near the southern border. Remembering those lost is important context when discussing the migrant surge. Last year, there were around 1.9 million arrests by Border Patrol. That's a record. And while some tried to cross multiple times, around 1 million were immediately expelled. The others, 400,000 or so, are here in the United States awaiting hearings.
Once a migrant is apprehended by Border Patrol and they are processed, if they're not sent back to Mexico or to another country right away, they're allowed to stay in the U.S. for the moment. And the first place they go are makeshift shelters like this.
This is the Catholic Charities donation room.
And that's where you find men and women like Roy Mendenhall. Non-profits like Catholic Charities are often tasked by state and federal governments to help migrants who are permitted to stay get necessities before they travel to other parts of the country.
They don't have anything, they, not even shoes.
The workers and volunteers here providing unique insight into what the country should be doing.
I approach it outside of politics.
Mendenhall says his biggest issue is that there's just too much politics around this topic. Whatever your views are, the people who are legally permitted to stay here, he says, should be given more respect.
There's a lot of people, a lot of migrants that come through here that have been separated from their family members.
Mendenhall's wish of getting the politics out of this is unlikely to happen. The border is poised to be a major issue in the midterm election this fall. Early data shows 2022 will be very similar to last year when it comes to illegal border crossing attempts. In Holtville, California, I'm Joe St. George.
Sheriff Donnie Youngblood is going on the offensive following a report released by the ACLU recently accusing Central Valley law enforcement of working with ICE agents to apprehend undocumented immigrants. Youngblood denying those accusations several times during a press conference Friday, saying immigration status is never discussed when someone's taken into custody. The report also claims people are arrested and turned over to ICE in violation of Senate Bill 54, and they accuse law enforcement of underreporting those numbers. Youngblood targeted that report, saying it was vague, with no names or dates, making it impossible for his department to investigate the allegations. Not to mention, he said, KCSO has been under investigation by the Department of Justice for the last 5 years.
And nowhere in that investigation in 5 years did the Department of Justice allege that we're violating Senate Bill 54. So what you're seeing from the ACLU is the same rhetoric that we see all the time. Throw it against the wall, see if it sticks, make the accusations, but we are not violating Senate Bill 54, nor are we trying to. We have employees that could make mistakes and we might not need to fix things, but we can't go back 2 years later and let them make an allegation that something occurred. We can't defend it because we can't research it. That's totally unfair to the employees of this organization.
Youngblood also questioned the timing of the report. The ACLU is rallying support for Assembly Bill 937, the Vision Act, to prevent law enforcement from detaining, transferring, or deporting anyone for immigration purpose.
Former Acting Department of Homeland Security Secretary and America First Policy Institute Center for Homeland Security Chairman Chad Wolf. Chad, great to have you this morning. Thanks very much. Your thoughts on deportations being down 70% in the last year?
Yeah, Maria. So at a time, and what we saw in 2021 was the worst border crisis that we have ever seen. So record number, over 2 million illegal apprehensions in that calendar year alone. And at the same time, we have the lowest number of deportations in over 20 or 25 years. And so I think what it tells you that the priority of this administration is not border security, and it's certainly not interior enforcement when it comes to immigration law. We have seen time after time this administration, again, putting handcuffs on the ability of law enforcement officers to do their job, to enforce immigration law, and to remove individuals that don't have a legal right to be here in the United States out of the country, and they're simply not able to do their job.
So Chad, what's the end game here? I mean, after all, we have a legal immigration structure in place. The United States issues 1 million green cards every year. And yet this administration is allowing 2 million people to jump the line, get in front of those people who are doing it legally to try to get that green card that the U.S. issues every year. And yet the administration not commenting at all on the apprehensions of 2 million over the last year, 1 million gotaways that we are expecting, 650,000 at a minimum. And then, of course, you've got the deadly fentanyl coming into the country that the administration never discusses. What's the end game here? Why are they keeping these borders wide open?
Well, it's a great point. I think, what we see, again, is a lack of leadership from the administration. You're exactly right. They don't talk about the crisis that's going on that southern borders, what American communities are facing every day, not only from the illegal immigration of humans, but also the illegal narcotics and the fentanyl that are killing hundreds of thousands of folks every year. And I think it's a shame. And so I think it's important, again, to keep this in mind. This is by design. This is what they plan to do. We hear the DHS secretary talk a lot about how they are fixing the system, and the system is working. And so when you see 2 million people released or apprehended, and then hundreds of thousands released into the interior of the country and then not deported, again, it's all by design, and it's coming from the Biden administration saying this is by design. This is the system we intended to build, and I think they've done that because they simply don't believe in enforcing immigration law. They don't like parts of the immigration statute where it talks about removing individuals, violent individuals, and so they're simply not doing it.
I want to connect the dots here, Chad, because we were just speaking with one lawmaker from Georgia who was on the Agricultural Committee, who told us that China is buying up land, and China is, we are vulnerable to China infiltrating our intake or imports of food. The White House has suspended imports of Mexican avocados. Following a threat to a U.S. plant safety inspector, they are putting no stop to drugs coming over the border. However, the fentanyl crossings at record highs, Customs and Border Protection reporting a more than 1,000% increase in seizures of fentanyl last year, Chad. And again, I ask you, what is the vision here? Because fentanyl is made in China and it is pushed through Mexico onto our shores. 100,000 people have died of overdoses in the last year, largely due to fentanyl. But we have not heard Joe Biden mention the word fentanyl at all in his more than 1 year in office.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's bizarre that you have over 100,000 Americans died last year alone from drug overdose deaths. And we know a lot of that's coming from Mexico and across the southern border. And yet the president, the vice president, or anyone else in the administration refuses to talk about it. It's quite alarming. And so I think what you see from a fentanyl perspective, again, you're exactly right. A lot of that is coming from China into the United States. If you go back to 2018 and 2019, a lot of that was actually coming through express consignment. It's through the UPS and the FedEx and the DHLs of the world into the United States. We cracked down on that, and as a result, they have now diverted into Mexico and then coming up through that southern border. And so the crisis that we see on that border, we talk a lot about humans being smuggled and trafficked, but it's also the illegal narcotics and the amount of money that these cartels are making every day on the crisis that this administration is not putting a stop to. And I think that's funneling and that's supporting that illegal activity when it comes to illegal narcotics coming across that border. So the two are very much linked.
What an extraordinary moment in time. Chad Wolf, thanks very much.